button. Why do you say I'm offline? I should be online. I hit streaming.
Quick, somebody find a server admin.
Is there an admin in the house?
You're not it.
Yeah, I don't do Twitch, so I don't know.
Alright, I guess I'm not going on Twitch then. Double check your Steam key, your stream key. It didn't fucking copy and pasted it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome, it works. Thank you.
Alright, I might just have to throw this up later on YouTube or something.
Hmm.
I should have tested the actual stream, but for some reason it doesn't like my stream key. So I will just throw it up on YouTube later.
I think you were saying that lasts longer anyway, right? A little easier to embed on the website.
So, topics. What one will be challenging today?
Best practices won by a whole 6 votes, so it was like triple all the other ones.
Oh wow. 6 votes.
Yeah.
Man, I love how active our community
I
is.
know. And there were 3 updates that were not, they were rogue reactions, so that means Sai, you've got 3 posts from the forums that you need to read.
So we can start whenever you guys are ready.
Oh, where'd it go?
Like I said, I am recording. I will create a YouTube channel that we don't have yet, and then get this on there. And then, Naz, you'll be tasked to link it to the website.
I'm excited for this.
It'll be fun.
So we'll start with the topic everybody voted on was best server practices. Does anybody have any particular questions under that topic?
There's one I could bring up.
Yep.
Does it involve like the bot bans or no?
Or best practices?
Yeah,
For
because
using
something I noticed was I've been looking at some of the global bans for both for example CSMM, and I don't think it's a good idea to global ban somebody for being stupid. If
well,
that makes sense.
there are checks and balances in that system. I mean, because like the default for the global ban system on your server when you're setting it up in CSMM is, I believe it's like 3 bans. So they would have to have bans from 3 separate servers to be able to trigger being banned on yours if you had it set that way. And you can also set it to warn at a certain level. So you'll get notified, hey, this guy's got global bans for whatever. And you can go and look at what they have and what the comments are on those bans and the ban reasons to see if they are valid or not. And, if you want to exclude them, go ahead.
No,
My
I agree
biggest-
with you. Yeah.
My biggest issue with the system is that it's not actually global. It's not like we don't have, it doesn't sync between CSMM or Botman or RAT or
Right.
server tools or whatever manager you're using. It's only for that particular tool you're using.
Right. Now, at one point, Catalysm did have a project ongoing for an actual interconnected global ban.
Yeah,
But I
remember
think he got too busy with school and now work to be able to pursue that. So I'm not sure if that's 100% dead in the water, because I know he's working on.
It's still there.
It is.
But yeah, it hasn't progressed in a couple of years.
Right. So I don't think he has the time between work and what he's putting in the CSMM now, like trying to get new features and whatnot like that going. However, another thing, if you self-host CSMM like I do, I am not connected into Catalysm's ban list either. It's only going to be the servers that are on my instance of CSMM, which I think I want to bring up with him and see if maybe there might be a way to interconnect that somehow.
Well, we have a private instance. What I have done is I've got a public instance on the Europe one, I believe, and it's also connected to our servers, and all it does is the GBL entries.
But do you have that on your own instance, as in like what you're running off your personal server?
Well, we pay for the enterprise with the
With Catalysm.
private instance
Right.
for Catas, but I also have a public, just free one
Well, it's no
on
longer
the
free
EU.
anymore, but he probably lets you keep it because you're on staff.
Probably, but we have. I mean, we just have that one, and the only function it has is to check the GBL.
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not free anymore just because it's.
Well, I mean, it costs you.
Right.
It's what happens when you get popular.
Right.
Yeah. The server was getting a bit too crowded.
Yeah, it wasn't able to keep up with just the sheer number of requests, and I mean, Keta's putting it himself. He can only pay for so many instances.
Right. I mean, he is getting donations, but I mean, it's still, only covers partial the cost because I think he has, or at least he did have 2 U.S. servers,
Yeah,
and
he
he's
still
get
does,
he's
but
got the
running all those
mm-hmm.
OBS clients is expensive. Those things are like $400 or $500 a month.
Yeah.
Alright.
Shadow, does that kind of answer your question a little bit?
No, yeah, I was just gonna. My suggestion was do not put people on the global ban if it's for stupid things like that. For me, like when I was looking over the players in my server, I'll be like, okay, that doesn't justify a global ban. Like, why are they global banning this person for being stupid? Like, come on.
Well, it's again, that's up to each admin on the server of how they want to handle it. If
Yeah.
you have someone who's trolling and cursing and just being stupid, I don't want that toxicity on my server, so I'm gonna kick you off of it and ban you. And I only ban
Right.
for 1,000 years or more. I don't play around and oh well, a day or this and that. If I have to ban you because I'm pretty loose with that, then you're gone off all my
Well,
servers.
the default's like 10 years off the top of my head.
That's what it
Yeah.
is for Botman too.
I
I
changed the boundary so it still notifies me at free, but it won't prevent anyone from playing until it's got 5 bans.
Yeah,
At
ours
that
are set the
point,
same way.
Right,
yeah,
you
if
can
if
set
if they've
how
got
many.
5 bans, they've done something.
It would be nice to be able to differentiate between like a toxicity ban or a hacking ban or
Well,
whatever
that's
general.
that's in the GBL. Like they have to put a reason in of why they banned them, and then it's up to the admin to decide. Well, I'll still let them on my server. I don't. So while it's listed as a global ban for 1 or 2 or 3 other servers, it doesn't have to be that way on your server. So if you don't agree with what that admin put in, then it's up to you. You can change it from 3 bans
Manual
to
work though.
5 bans or 10 bans. But at least it gives you a notification that says, hey, this guy was doing something on another server that another admin didn't like. And then it's up to you to decide if that's a cause for you to ban them on your server or not.
Yeah, you could always set the auto ban to something like 99, so it'll pretty much never automatically ban someone, so you can always get the notification, so you can always decide whether the bans they have is justified.
Karma, kind of building off of what you said, maybe you could set it to where there's different like categories,
Right.
or you can just tick a box or set a Boolean value for something like that, and then everybody could opt in or out of those settings.
Like, I don't care if somebody peeks through the ground. I really don't. I'm a PvE server. I really don't care. I did it when I was a player. I did it, I would totally do it. But there's a lot of PvP servers that, like, if you get caught doing that, you're out of there. So, having the ability to automate something that would say, like, okay, you're banned for, toxic behavior, you're banned for cheating on PvP, you're banned for hacking. It would be nice to be able to automate some of that. But I don't use CSMM, so
What do you use or do you have server?
yeah, I'm Botman.
Okay.
I'm
But yeah,
OG
Botman's got a
Botman.
GBL too, but
Yeah.
I mean, they all of the GBLs work basically the same way. I mean, and what it is when you do the action of banning someone on your server, it adds them to the GBL and it adds the reason that you enter. If your reason is too generic, then that doesn't really help the GBL a whole lot.
No.
I had
I had.
an issue where it was back in Alpha 16, and I teleported a player to me because I was going to talk to him or whatever, and Botman banned him for flying, and
Right.
CSM picked it up, and he got added
Yes.
to the CSM's global ban list. And normally you would just unban them, and he would get removed from the global ban list. But
Mhm.
something funny happened, and he ended up stuck with it for like a couple years. And
Oh,
eventually, I was
geez.
like, I'm just gonna ask Kata if he can remove it. And yeah, it Kata got off.
Yeah, I believe the bans are stored in the admin.xml file, and that's where Botman and CSM will both read from.
Mhm. That is correct. They pull
Yeah.
it from. I think they mostly read it from the log entry when the action is taken.
For Botman, we've got, of course, the local one, but then the global one, I think, is where Smeek keeps that on his side, because I don't see the full global list on my side. It's pretty hard to get on that one.
Yeah.
And so, who
No
else has
added room.
questions for us? Anybody out there in listening land?
Do
Yeah,
we
I was
want to
gonna.
start sharing our best practices for servers?
I was gonna suggest, guys, between these questions, we had a few I think that were listed somewhere. I read. Maybe we
I
can
have
answer
those
those.
from Zipcore.
Yeah, like maybe answer those between things, like a space filler.
Sure.
Yep. Well, I mean, when we're getting down to best practices for servers, it's mainly know what your hardware is capable of and don't exceed that.
Yeah, I mean, you really
Yeah,
don't want to have 30 players on there because that's just going to make your game run, barely.
Excited. Get all upset.
yeah. It,
And I don't know what it is. I mean, it's something that pops up every now and then, but
yeah,
for the past 2 months, it has been every day or every other day. I run into somebody saying, "Hey, I have this problem. This is all the information." And it's like, well, yeah, your issue is directly because you've got 50 players. You know, you can't do that. And they're like, well, this used to work fine. And I'm like, no, actually it
Mhm,
didn't. And that's why you have the problem now.
mhm. Remember when that Chinese
yeah,
server had like 100 players on it all at once that one
You know,
time?
they
And
still
then
show up on the
everybody.
list.
Oh, God.
3/4 of them aren't actually players. They're just bots.
Hmm. Right.
yeah. You get the common argument of, well, all these servers do it and they're fine, but they're not. They have the same issues, and they either don't notice because they don't pay attention to the server, or they don't even play on it to notice there's all these issues, or
There's a
they
reason.
just don't
Yeah.
care.
There's a reason a lot of these servers are wiping their maps once a month.
Yes. I think somebody else had mentioned, like when we were chatting about best practices ideas, was also don't edit your mods or whatever on a live server. It's a big
Mhm.
no-no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you've got to be really careful about what you change. Because if
Mm.
you change anything that's going to affect reputation or progression, then
That's such a
all your
bad
player
word.
files are toast.
Yeah.
yeah.
If you
Even
change
things like
something with blocks or items, then that anybody that had those items that are now removed, or
I learned
well,
that the hard way when
They're
I
gonna
first
yeah,
started modding.
they're gonna get a
if
bunch
a
of
player has
whole
like
no errors.
if a player has like a custom item in their inventory, then you remove that mod. The next
yep,
time they join the server, they'll just get like NRE spammed, and
Hmm.
they just won't be able to play.
yep, because the server doesn't know what to do with it. The item
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
I
So,
remember I was on a server once where the admin was modding files while it's live, or saving files while the server was live. And that's a great way to wipe out a profile. Everything was new because you had to completely start from scratch again because it would throw everything off.
Well, the way the Dedi client works now, it's easier to do that, and it just won't take effect until the next restart,
Oh, that's good.
because it's not reading that live. Once it's loading the server, it loads all of the XML files basically into RAM, and it
Oh, okay,
holds
cool.
them there. Um, but that becomes a little annoying with some things because, like, you can edit the config file on the fly, but then while the server is doing its thing, and then when it goes to shut down, it saves the config file, and that screws up everything you just changed. And then you're like, oh no.
Yeah, if you're
You
gonna be
know,
making XML tweaks, your best option is to do the Xpath, and then use the set XML to overwrite what settings you don't like, and then throw it in your mods folder.
yeah,
I think it's
the XPath
wonderful.
has really that's been a godsend
Yeah,
Oh, I
we
love it
need
for a lot
so
of players.
much.
yeah we need to definitely thank a lock for that, and the guys on Guppy's Discord for kind of like pushing that, because that is a godsend. I mean, remember doing it in 15 and
I mean, the
16, and you had to
update
back
between
up the
every oh,
files.
Yeah.
terrible.
Another thing with best practices and mods would be like always test if you want to add a new mod to the server, test it out in single player first and make sure it's working okay, because as great as mod are, they're not always they don't get like quality tested. So
Yeah.
occasionally you'll run into an issue where there's a bug in the mod and you've already added it to the server, and then you've got to either wait for an update or fix it yourself, and then you have to make changes to the mod whilst it's already on the server, and it can get a bit messy.
Amen to that point. Yes.
Mhm.
And you got to keep an eye out if you're using an overhaul mod like Darkness Falls or Ravenhurst. Make sure your server has enough RAM to be able to handle that, because they both add in assets and that raises the requirement on the RAM, and it takes longer to load. So
For
significantly.
players.
yeah, I mean I mean my server is pretty set for hardware with a AMD, Ryzen 3950X and 128 gigs total RAM. I don't have to worry about that. But people running servers with like 12 or 16 gigs of RAM, that's probably not going to be enough.
Well, it's fine if you've only got 3 or 4 people playing
But what if I have
Hmm.
30?
and you're not using huge. Yeah, you're not going to
33.
get 30 on that much RAM. I mean,
Like
with
other
16
server.
gig of RAM, you can probably get up to about 10 or 12 players, and then
And,
that's going to be it.
and that's going to be on Linux too, since it handles things better. I mean, I would definitely up that another 4 gigs for Windows.
And I've seen modded servers like Ravenhurst that we've ran a lot, and even Darkness Falls with smaller population will run probably 12 to 14 gigs.
Yeah, well, Ravenhurst, I mean, they recommend a minimum of 12 gigs for the Dedi.
Yeah,
Um,
and
with Darkness Falls, I think it's 16.
if you go to rent a server, their minimums have jumped up and driven the price up too because of that as well.
Yeah, and now they're getting to where I think Bluefang or one of the other ones, they start you out with 8 now instead of 16, and you have to pay an extra like $10 to get 16 gig.
Yeah, it was Blue Fang. I was with them for a while, and they kept jacking it up for more and more RAM.
Okay, we just had a
Well,
question come in from Rhea, not to interrupt you guys, but
yep.
they ask, what would you consider best practice tools for monitoring instances?
For the server managers, I think
Like
we have
for
5.
performance,
Rhea,
Which
for like managing the server, or for like performance issues like tracking CPU usage, RAM, and whatnot. What are you looking for? Uh, Typing.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid to talk. You just gotta have a push to talk button. I mean, if we're not making fun of Naz for his accent, you're totally fine.
Some people may not even have
Inventory.
microphones. So.
Performance, up and down, that sort of thing.
Well, I deal mostly in Linux. So for ours, I'm using net data, which is great for tracking. It gives you statistics on pretty much everything, and you can track it over time too. For Windows, I'm not sure. I've got net data running on our Windows system, but I don't have as much information on it because the Linux subsystem doesn't see everything on Windows.
Flood, we don't have
Task
anything.
Manager's a good baseline.
Task Manager, you said, Naz?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
that's
also server FPS gives you an indicator of how well it's doing.
Yeah, and server FPS. It reminds me, just in the past week or so, somebody was saying, we run 60 plus people, and our server FPS is fine. And I was looking at his log, and I'm like, your server FPS is 20. That's not fine. Server FPS ideal is around 40, 35 to 40. That's ideal. That's where you really
That's
want it
very
to
nice.
be. Between 25 and 30 is acceptable. But if it's getting below 25, then your system is not able to keep up with the requests from the server. And when it drops to 20 and below, I've seen it as low as 14, then you're impacting your server's ability to function.
People will fall through the map.
And you'll get corrupted map data and corrupted player profiles, and then you end up having a bunch of problems, and then you're
In the support channel.
Yeah, the best practice is back up your servers frequently. When I don't have any servers going at this time, but when I did, and if I was running them on Windows, I would use Rat to back them up and do it hourly and keep like the last 8 hours. Granted, I have space to do that depending how big the map is and how popular it's been and whatnot. For the most part, if you have the recommended number of players or they're slightly over, the backups don't get too big. Back in A15, my one server was over 4,500 days, and that was, I think, a good 16 or 18 gigabytes to back up.
Yeah, I was looking at mine the other day, and I think just the 4 were around 35 gig.
Hello, Sam.
His headset
He's
and
not
mic are
listening to
off.
us.
There he goes. Welcome, Sam. Say something with your Aussie accent. Crikey.
Put a shrimp on the bobby.
It's
Oh, no, he's
Foster's.
not going to say anything.
I know. Foster's, Australian for beer.
Oh, that's inspiring.
I do have a question.
He's asking himself if he should have joined this channel.
Exactly. Go ahead,
Yes,
Shadow.
Oh, that was Shadow. Sorry.
No. How do you guys know so much? Is it because experience over the years, or there's something special about you guys?
We're aliens from the planet Nanu Nanu.
We're all special.
I think
My
Silent
mom
has
says
the
I'm special.
Silent has the most experience here. I think in general, running game servers and whatnot. I've been running 7-day servers and got into server hosting back in 2016, about 2 months after I started playing this game. But since then, I've hosted The Forest. I've hosted Rust. I've done Conan. I've done Empyrean. I'm going to be doing Dead Matter. Hopefully, this next update fixes a whole bunch of crap that made it unplayable. But it's just learning by fire is really what it comes down to.
Learn by doing.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of fire involved.
Everything.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what it is. I mean, been doing this a long time. I've been hosting servers on Linux since like 2007, 2008. I picked up 7 days at the tail end of Alpha 9. By the time 10.4 was stable, we were hosting servers. And by Alpha 11, I was pretty much primary support contact on the forum. And then I became a mod, and I've just been in it ever since.
Yeah,
And I work with internal testers, and they do a lot of stuff.
I created this Discord just for the fact of how much I love the game. They've made a bunch of changes I'm not a fan of. I still play when the new alphas come out, but I get bored rather quickly. But I wanted to be able to, build a community to actually like help other people, and I'm very fortunate, with the staff here that they're willing to help and willing to put in the time, and I rely heavily on them. So they know I appreciate it. I really wish I was like a billionaire. I can give them all like $1 million for their efforts and hard work. Um, but it's just I used to be on the forum a lot, and and be able to help out people. But I would do that more or less when I was at work, and then I start getting busy, and it would drop off. And it's Discord came about, and I thought this was the way to go to be able to bring more people together to be able to help them. There's a lot of new server owners out there. There's just people who just not sure what to do, and I think being able to help everybody, for me, it makes me feel good. Be able to help everybody. I mean, not gonna lie, sometimes users are frustrating,
That's
but
why we have the staff channel.
yes, that's why we have the staff channel so we can talk shit on all of you guys.
Definitely do.
And it's just, frustration, like, just listen to us, I mean, like you said, Silent's been doing it since Alpha 10.4. I've been doing it since 2016. The rest of you guys have probably been doing at least a few years. And, we probably have like somewhere between 20 and 30 years of experience between us in this channel right now. So, like, we're not trying to pull your chain. We're not trying to lie to you. We're not trying to, like, just say you're wrong. We have the experience to say, hey, listen, we've tried this. This does not work.
If you broke it, I've probably run into it before.
Exactly.
I was going to say too, like, well, first to answer your question, like I've worked in the IT field for over 20 years myself and have some programming experience. So I kind of got sideloaded into it. And, what I mean by that is I started running these game servers, and as an admin, like you guys, running your own servers, you try to figure things out, right? And you read articles and you come in here and you talk to other admins and things like that. Well, a lot of times what I've seen in these communities is the geeks, for lack of a better phrase, kind of tend to get together, and they're the ones that are making the bots. They're making the mods. They're helping people run the servers. So, um, just it's not just about game server experience. You have a lot of pretty exceptional people in the background that are volunteering their time to help. And I'm like, me personally, I'm pretty impressed with the people that have the time and the expertise to make the bots and the mods, because I mean that there's a ton of time to get sunk into that stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely.
For my
Or
part as well,
carrier.
hello everyone, sorry I was late. For my part as well, like I'm pretty new to all this. I only started in June or July last year. Alpha 18 was my first alpha for 7 days. But I've just got involved, as the only advice I can give you for learning how to do it is just get stuck in. And everybody sort of sees me on a bunch of Discords. I like to be active. I like to try to help people, and if I can't help, then I probably learn something by the process.
Yeah, and you've picked up a lot of stuff really quick too.
Yes.
Thanks.
I see you everywhere.
Yeah.
That's because he's
Effort.
stalking you, Peter.
I know, right?
Did you have a
I
question,
first came
Peter?
to the
I saw you typing earlier.
That's because of my push to talk button. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead, Naz. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I joined about Alpha 16, and it was my first game server I'd ever set up. So I'm kind of I feel a bit like the noob admin around here. But yeah, when I first joined the server, I got a lot of help, and over time I would take what I learned and help other people where I saw them, and that's kind of how I joined the team here.
And you really went to town on working on prefabs.
Oh yeah. Or
Yep.
well, That one
Aircraft
prefab.
carrier.
I'm pretty sure
Man,
you're gonna have
that carrier is massive.
Yeah, pretty sure it's gonna have nightmares when A20 comes out and they change the blocks again.
Oh god.
I
Oh
hate
god.
it.
I
As
wish
long
I
as the
wish I
names
could
don't
talk about
change.
A20 more.
I know.
There are so many changes y'all are gonna love in
It
A20.
is. It won't be too bad. I don't think it'll be too bad for NAS so far.
No, I
Hopefully.
I've
don't
been
It'll be
think there's
bad
a lot of.
frost. Real bad
I've been checking
frost.
my prefabs and I haven't seen too many blocks have gotten their names changed. So
Apparently, someone has an anonymous question for Naz. When can we see a guided missile cruiser? I think
Ooh.
Naz is going to require a whole bunch of beer for that. So start
Potatoes,
start
shit.
your donating now.
is the lighthouse finished first?
I can. It's half done.
There's that.
I'll post a picture if I can find some.
I'm sorry, Peter. What
And
were you saying?
Oh, is he talking about a vehicle or just a building?
POI. So just
Okay.
like Naz, if you're not aware, has this huge ass aircraft carrier. I think Naz, you had to like put it into the ice for actual support because of the
yeah,
physics.
it's a little bit janky. It looked better in Alpha 17 when ice was still in the game. Now
Mhm.
it's just all kind of snow and it looks a bit funny. But the server hub version, I can get that floating, so that's just sitting in the water like you would normally expect. And I think it was Alpha 18 they added flotation blocks, I did manage to get them to float and stay in the air, but anything attached to them would just fall off. So I couldn't really use them to, get a floating version going.
Now you started that all before they had the prefab editor. You were doing that in game, weren't you?
Yeah, in Alpha 16, I
Yeah, it was
had
Alpha 16.
Yeah.
a prefab server up,
Mhm.
and you basically just build in game and export it when you're done.
So glad when they added the prefab editor. Made things so much better.
Oh yeah, it's so much easier to get into prefabbing now. You don't need, set up an entire server and all
Placing
that
each
kind of stuff.
individual block. Oh god.
Well,
Yeah.
I was using for buildings. I had done some keeps and in some castles on my servers. I was using uh, someone came out with that prefab editor
Piles?
after. Yes, I was using Piles because
Yeah.
originally I was using HAL 9000s, but he decided to end support on that. I think after Alpha 15. So then I
Hmm.
switched over to
And
Piles.
Piles was an extension of Pals.
Yeah, but I mean, it took me a quick minute to realize, how to envision his thing in 3 dimensional when it's, when it with the layers and the view that he had. But it was so much easier to like to at least build that outer structure and then, put the, 10 or 12 block deep moat in there than sitting there and have to go in and do that all by hand and everything else.
Mhm.
Well,
So
it's
Yeah.
useful for converting blocks between versions too.
that too,
That's what we
yeah.
did when everything changed for 16. That was invaluable. Like my experience, like I've been playing 7 days since Alpha 7, and I popped onto the server I'm with now on A10. Then I took it over from Soylent Green and Smeeg, actually. So one of the nice things about Botman is they had the ability to export different volumes. So the prefabs were able to get those out of the maps that we had, and then with piles we were able to convert them over to the new blocks. And then when 16 came out with the POI, 16 or 17? 17, I forget.
17 was when everything changed, and they actually included the block converter in the client.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that's when I did all my stuff.
Yeah,
A lot of
17's
stuff.
the alpha we shouldn't talk about. That's when they took out all the schematics and all the books and introduced the attributes. Yeah,
The
that should be
lag.
the yeah. That should be the alpha we don't talk about.
Matt Mold did finally apologize for that.
Yeah, but which gate was it called on the forums that, like, you know, I mean, I like Mad Mole for the most part, but he needs to concentrate less on make things pretty and more of
The
make things
lighting.
functional.
The lighting. Oh, we updated the lighting. Every single alpha. The lighting is updated.
Well,
Like
it was
some
causing some issues for a while after Alpha
some of
15, I
the
think it was.
like updated models and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, that's better than it was. But some things I think they're fine as it is. Like they're redoing the traders again, and it's like,
Hmm.
aren't
Well,
they
they have
okay?
an entire team of people that do nothing but work on that. So it's not like it's affecting other development. They have just graphic designers now. They have like 15 or 20 of them.
Yeah, I wish, there'd be a little bit more info let out from TFP about what's actually being done on the coding side. I know Madmol had his fit because he would say this and then won't make it in and whatnot, and I kind of understand that, but he went from oversharing to no sharing.
Well,
So,
yeah, because he got in trouble for oversharing.
yeah, but at
Zip
least
And
lines.
at least release something out so I'm not like, oh, A20, oh, it looks pretty. Well, what do I get to look forward to as far as game improvements? Like, that's great. There's a new
yeah,
POI.
well,
There's new skins on the zombies and all that. But give me some meat, not just the icing on the cake.
right. Well, there's a couple of things I can say in that regards because they have been in the dev videos. But Alpha 20 is a major push to finalize some of the new systems and get some optimization started. And a lot of the optimization to the client that arrived in 19.4 and 19.5, well, is coming in 19.5. It's the experimental now, is from Alpha 20. And especially with like the distant POI and all of the mechanics regarding to that, they've been doing a lot of testing and working on that to get it squared out, to get it to where lower end computers can play the client better, and to really smooth out and optimize the graphics system so it's not bogging down your computer. Um, there's going through the prefabs painstakingly detailed um, to update all of the old ones and to add in a few new ones. They've got, I don't even know how many now. I'd have to go look.
So many.
Hundreds.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's well over 500 now.
Hmm.
Individual prefabs, they're all different,
Yeah. Okay.
not including the testing ones.
All right. Common has some questions here. He says he's new to hosting 7 days. He's been playing all on and off since release, and figured it'd be easier to log questions in chat. Okay. How does player population affect server performance? Does it exponentially degrade above 20? Sai, I think I'll let you handle this one.
Well, it's here's the thing that you have to consider. With other games, like say Left 4 Dead, it's a static map, so none of the map changes, and all that the client has to keep track of is the positions of players and the positions of enemies. That's it. With 7 days, you've got each individual voxel cube, the structural integrity for that cube, what its stickiness is for attaching to other blocks. And then you've got each entity, the pathing for each of those entities, a whole bunch of lighting and other stuff for the graphics, because
Buffets and
you have the constantly changing terrain, every block. I mean, when you're sitting there and you have the default settings, you've got about 5 chunks surrounding you that are active. And each chunk is 16 blocks by 16 blocks, 256 high. And, that's millions and millions of voxel cubes that it's working on. So for each player, you have all of that data. If the players are spread out, you have all of that data 20 times. And that's a lot of stuff in the RAM. That's a lot of stuff that has to be processed by the CPU. And there's a limit in the amount of data that any program is going to be able to handle at one time. And with Unity, with the voxel things, we start to see that degrade around 20 to 25 players. And I'll be honest, the most I've ever been able to get to remain stable on our systems was about 24. And that was with really, really pushing things to the edges. But we leave it at 20 and everything's peachy. Um, it does kind of exponentially degrade. There's other factors in that too. I mean, you've got the size of your map.
Yes.
You've got, because the map is loaded into the RAM. And so that's going to eat up more RAM. The bigger your map is, the more RAM you need. And the bigger your map is, the more RAM your clients need. And the longer it's going to take them to connect to the server when they go to connect. Um, it's just it's better now. It's a lot better now. They've really done a lot of optimizations. You used to be able to say, guaranteed you're going to need 4 gig for the client, and you're going to need, it was 756K to 1 gigabyte for each player connected to the server. Now it's a lot less. Thankfully, now it's a lot less. Since Alpha 16, Alpha 17, that's been reducing with every release. And most of our servers run around 4.5 gig off the top of my head. They'll climb up to about 12 when they're fully loaded, but I mean, still, that's not bad for a basic server.
Okay, so Comet's got another question here. He's like, I haven't considered a server management tool outside of Botman. How does CSM stack up? Is it better to run both if they don't conflict with each other?
Running both, you can almost guarantee a conflict.
Yeah. A lot of they both share a lot of features. I have used most of the server management tools out there, including the one that should not be named. And that was briefly. But it really depends on your preference. I know Smegzer was charging, I think, $10 a bot. CSMM is $5 for, I think, what, 2 servers?
Either 2 or 4. I'd
2
have
or
to go
4,
look at.
right. And then Botman now has its own API, which it didn't before. It was using copies. And then I think Smegzer built on top of that after it was no longer being updated. And so it really, I haven't used Botman in probably about 2 or 3 years, if not a little bit longer. Like, it was well before he had the web-based control panel for it. And it's,
Well, that's really new. They've been working on it since Alpha 16, though. So
yeah, well, High Hope left the Botman, and he is
yep,
starting his own thing. So I think he was doing the web development, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
he was,
I
and
hoped at the dashboard, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's the lounge. That's where I usually work on my Botman stuff.
Yeah. So, I mean, my best advice for this is try them both out and see which interface you like better. They basically do the same stuff. But some of, there might be a couple of differences in the different commands and different things you can run. I don't know if Botman has advanced claims that
yeah, they have a similar system.
Okay.
Both of them have very similar systems. They have a lot of similarities, and they have a lot of things that work a little bit different. I think overall, Botman has a little bit more in the quality of life features for admins, and it's got a couple of things for players, but you can do some of those same things on CSMM. It just requires a little bit extra work with CPM and writing custom commands.
Right, which actually
Uh,
is very in depth with Catalysm adding the handlebar system and the regex, which I don't quite understand the regex. It looks all foreign to me, but
yeah, the regex is amazing. I love that.
it's very versatile, especially if you want like custom things to fire off. With between the regex and the handlebars, you could actually set like a bounty on a person if you're running like a PvP server, and just like, hey, this guy was the most recent one to kill someone. I'm going to give 500 Duke coins to the first person who kills this guy, and that can all be
Oh,
automated.
bounty system. Yeah, we've got that on Botman.
Yeah, but I mean, it even
Yeah.
goes beyond that. Like you can, I mean, your imagination is really your limitation on what you can do with that handlebar and regex system. I mean,
Yeah, we had it
that's. Mhm.
set up on our really hard server where people got awarded for level, certain level gains. Like, you hit level 50, and it would make an announcement and play a sound.
You can use it also for like management. I use the regex to automatically kick any player with like .com or whatever because it's usually some advertisement for
Key,
something.
for key sites or something.
Yeah. shadykeys.com.
Well, we actually use both Botman and CSMM, and we found they've worked well together. We just had to change the prefix for a CSMM to something else, and we've had to go in and decide which bot does what because they do the same things in a sense. So you just have to decide which one you want doing which job.
Yeah, CSMM itself is actually safe to use with pretty much any other bot because CSMM is just a website that reads your logs and acts on them. So it all it does is pick up the logs, choose whether or not to do something based on those logs, and then maybe run a command back. It's designed sort of hand in hand with CPM, which is the API mod, but that API mod isn't necessary. It just enables a lot of stuff that CSMM is expected to do. But if you've got console commands that Botman will run for you, you can tell CSMM to run those console commands.
Yeah.
So it's pretty compatible, CSMM itself.
The
But
only
if you were running
problem,
CPM and Botman, then you'd want to be careful about what you actually pick.
yeah, the only problem we've had with running both is one of the bots picking up the chat before the other one. So we've had to fiddle around with that quite a bit to get it to work properly.
Is Botman still running on Mudlet?
No, I don't think. Well, I can't definitively say that, but
It
it's
does
been
have
migrated
a
away from that.
modlet.
Yeah.
It does have a modlet, but it doesn't require it to run. It needs it for some things though. But I think he's going to be changing that soon.
Yeah, I remember when I had that installed, and I've donated to Smegs a few times to, get me situated when I couldn't figure something out when I was running the Botman. But that Mudlet thing was kind of like, oh, okay. Then again, I was using, because of that, I was running my own IRC server, and really I did that is so I could log in from work and just kind of keep tabs on things to see if anybody needed anything, if there was any problems, because earlier alphas were a little bit more problematic than they are now with different things.
I actually almost always have my IRC open just to keep an eye on what's going on my server.
Same.
Yeah, usually I'll just pop open my CSMM, see if anybody's on or something like that, and then I'll just, through the interface, just, send a chat message and see if anybody needs anything. Or I do it through the Discord actually now.
Yeah, I mostly use Discord.
Yeah, brain farted on that one, but yeah, usually when I get to work, I open up two tabs for my work email. I have one tab for my home email, and then the Google search, and then the next tab after that's Discord. So, when I'm bored, that's when I'm the most active. I don't have anything at work to do, or I'm just procrastinating. Um, Comment does have one more question. He's like, I've been messing around with editing and developing our own mods. Are there best practices with regards to what you should and should not edit? What about regards to the number of mods installed? Well, it all depends. If you're just doing XML edits for the server side, that will kick to the client, or if you're doing something a little bit more in depth where your players are going to have to download things like running things through Unity, like new weapons, new blocks, new vehicles, stuff like that. Um, Using Xpath is the best way to do the mods and throw them in its own little folder in the mods folder. This way you're not editing the actual config files, because if you need to verify or a new alpha comes up, those get overwritten. So you want to do everything with the XPath if you can, and do it that way. What I like to do if I'm doing any kind of mods, especially if I'm doing something bigger, that I would make them all into little modlets, and then when I know each one works, then combine it into a bigger file. So then it's like, okay, so I'm not having like 6 different folders with 6 different names for each of the different things I'm doing.
Yeah, I would also add that you should always test it on in single player first before you put on the server, just to make sure everything's working right. So you don't need to make changes once it's already on the server.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Mhm.
like we mentioned earlier, changes to blocks or items that already exist in the world, or changes that pretty much 90% of the things that you would change in progression.xml will break existing characters. It used to be that it would pretty much make it so nobody could log into the server anymore. But TFP fixed that, and now all it does is reset the character. So if you're
Yeah.
going to make any changes to progression, you definitely want to do that on a fresh server. You don't want to do that to a live server.
Yeah, create a new game, just log in, then quit, add the mod, and see if it resets you.
Hmm. Well,
Another
do
thing
some
to
things so that you know that there's.
Yeah.
Also good to check in between different builds, just to make sure something hasn't gone and changed.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
that's what I was going to add for like even if you're running somebody else's overhaul mod, sometimes you'll hear the modder say a wipe is recommended or strongly recommended or won't be supported unless you wipe kind of thing. Usually they're saying that because something critical has changed and you're likely going to start corrupting crap if you don't go along with the wipe.
Hmm. And something else, and I've run into this a few times, not very often, but a large number of mods will put extra strain on your client on starting it up, and it'll eat extra RAM when running. If you can combine some of those mods and narrow them down, you could have 50 mods and it'll bring your computer to a crawling to a crawl when you run them. But you can take those 50 mods, and if you can combine them and get all the features combined into 10, it'll have all the same stuff and it'll be loading all the same data. But because you're only loading 10 instead of 50, it hugely reduces your RAM overhead and will make it easier to run.
That's
And that's
interesting. Thank you.
because of the way the mods are loaded into RAM and the way the client handles it. I don't know if this is going to be optimized further or not, or how all this is going to change. I wasn't even aware of this being an issue until a few weeks ago, and I was helping somebody out, and they were like, "Oh well." And they were just randomly trying things, and so they did this, and it worked.
Know about the multiple mods. A lot of times I have folded like I keep my own custom stuff usually when I'm not running an overhaul mod. And I like to keep my lines nice and tight and not have a whole bunch of different files. But does the sequencing make a difference as well? Like if you've got a file that's named one and then mod name whatever, would that be overwritten by subsequent mods if they had overlap somewhere?
Yes,
Hell yes.
mods are loaded by alpha, and that is one of the reasons why CSMM has the number one in the front, one.cs or one CSMM for the folder, because it needs, or CPM, mod CPM, it needs to be loaded before some of the other mods. Like it needs to be loaded before BCM or the Botman mod. I don't know if he's renamed it or not. I haven't played with Botman in a while.
No, it's still good.
I know when I was playing around with Darkness Falls and I was using Zip's new mod, I needed to make sure that his loaded before the Darkness Falls mod, because otherwise it misread item data it was looking for and didn't load properly. And so order counts mostly with API mods, or if you're using any of the DMT mods, anything that changes the core of the game. With XML mods, it's not as critical, but if you have something that changes one thing and then another mod that changes the same thing differently, whichever one gets loaded first is going to take priority. because the next one that gets loaded is like, this has already been changed, and it ignores it.
I've been wondering which order it took it from, because I remember way back
Yeah.
when the Xpath thing first came out, they mentioned that.
Yeah, it loads them in alpha order.
They're saying my Tay mod should be 1 Tay mod.
Maybe.
Oh yeah,
But
I
yeah,
discovered that by accident because one of my custom mods that I created was getting affected by something. I was like, what is affecting it? And eventually I discovered it was another mod that I downloaded online that was affecting it. That's how I learned it goes by alphabetical order.
yeah, once they go to an actual modding platform so that we can do workshop support, I really, really, really hope that it's going to work something like the way Conan does, so that we can manually edit mod load orders if we need to.
I don't know if Conan still does that or not.
Oh yeah,
Because
you can still do that.
because I had that issue with Conan before. It's like, okay, well, I got to load this before this and this before that, and it was a pain trying to figure out what the load order was sometimes. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it is.
Still is a pain.
the one thing I wish they would do, and that's just any game, not necessarily Conan, but like if you have the workshop going, and there's an item that's a workshop update, at least in Steam say this is what's being updated, and that's really a Steam issue above anything else.
Yeah, instead of just saying generic workshop update.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, which one is updating? Because I have Arma 3 installed, and I have some mods installed, and I'm like, well, what updated? I got to go to my Steam folder and figure out what updated, and I'm like, all right, this is too much effort.
Check your 20 different Discord channels.
Yeah. Anybody else with any other questions?
If we want to continue on with like the best practices, I think Silent touched on it a little bit, but map sizes.
Okay.
Why running an 8K versus like a 16K? The differences that players or server owners can expect to see.
Well, again, with the maps are loaded into RAM, and the way it works when a player connects to a map is basically your server sends a map to the client, and then the client processes that data to generate the distant POI and whatnot on the player's computer, so that all of that data doesn't have to be constantly be sent from the server. It does the same thing with the prefab information. That's why compo pack has to be loaded on both sides since Alpha 17. That's really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only reason I haven't run compo pack since Alpha 16 is because it has to be installed on a client, and I don't want my clients to have to install mods.
Yeah,
I hate that.
I wish my players, when I had my servers were active and whatnot, wouldn't mind downloading some stuff because there's some really cool things that they could get exposed to. But it's coming down. Well, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to download this, and I'm like, all right,
Yeah, I found so many players don't even know how to browse their local files, to install a mod. So
Simple
it's
copy
easier if they
paste.
just it's easier if they just don't have to go in there and play with stuff. So
Yeah, but
that's why.
you have Sphereiis mod installer. I mean that does the job for at least most of the overhauls and some of the other modlets. And I mean any modder out there can, they're using Git. I think that's how Sphereiis uses to pull
Yeah, I
them.
wish Nexus would be nice if
Oh,
it had
don't
more
say
support,
Nexus.
but
No, Nexus is
it's
a bad word.
see here's a problem. The quality of the stuff on the Nexus is junk. It's
Yes.
either junk, it's out of date, or it was blatantly stolen from one of the other better sources. That's my problem with the Nexus. But the tool, Vortex, I believe it's called now. Yeah, Vortex. Vortex as a tool is amazing.
Did he rename it?
And I don't know, huh?
Are you talking about Spherei's mod launcher? Did he rename it the Vortex?
No, I'm talking about the Nexus
Oh.
mod launcher.
Oh, yeah, yeah. See, that's a bad word.
But they haven't coded it to function with the 7 days client. I don't know if there's too many variables or what. But if you could have something like that, then it could work with any mod instead of just the ones that Sphereiis has time to add to his tool. That's the only thing that I don't like about Sphereiis mod launcher is that it's limited that way. I mean, it's great for when you've got the big overhauls or the things that he's been able to add to it, but it's not helpful for a lot of people that want to play around with a lot of the little mods or play around with more than one mod.
Well, that's up to the modlet authors to get in contact with Sphereiis to have him added to the launcher. You know,
Right.
Sphereiis doesn't go out and say, "Let me see what I can add." It's more of people going to him and say, "Hey, listen, can you add this to your mod launcher?" And,
Right.
And you know, maybe people just don't know about it. You know that they can do that, but I think that's just such a good tool. And then I know he doesn't even want to keep it going because he wants the workshop support, but he does it because it makes life easier for everybody.
And because we don't have workshop support.
Right, which might come sometime after gold, maybe.
Or it might be coming towards the end of beta.
Okay.
They keep tossing around, but the last time I talked to them about, they hinted at it was going to come mid beta or towards the end of beta.
We haven't even gotten out of alpha.
Beta is just around the corner, though. I mean, they're really pushing hard for it now.
Yeah.
We've got Alpha 20 is going to have the major focus on Alpha 20 right now is fixing RWG,
Yes.
getting that finalized so it's not something they mess with anymore at all. And the distant POI system and, finalizing all the POIs. That is a huge, oh my God, huge focus for Alpha 20. Also, you know, the mechanics for some of the AI, the getting the drone finished, they put so much work into the drone too, and optimization for the graphics, and the way things are loaded on the system and the RAM. And I mean, their goal, like for RWG, is going to be 1 minute per square kilometer. So you're going to be able to do on a system that meets recommended specs an 8K map in 8 minutes.
Oh, that's not too
A
bad.
16K map, a 16K map in 16 minutes or less. And that's a hard goal. They're working hard to do that and to getting the maps smaller. Because like we had just the map files were like 1.5 gigs. I think the last map I did was only 600 meg. So they're really decreasing the size of the maps, and that's good in multiple ways because it means less RAM used. It means less connection time for your clients when they connect to your servers the first time. And optimization of netcode will help out there too, but I think Alex pretty much done with most of the netcode changes already. There was that guy started a thread. It's like netcode's crap and it's just basic, and I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about.
I do have one question. I don't know if you can or can't answer this, Si.
Yeah.
The new POIs are working on, are they still going to be dungeon crawls? Or are they loosening that up
It's
like in the earlier alphas where it's like, hey, you find a house, there's some sleepers in here.
it's a good mix.
Okay.
I think on the new ones, it's probably about 50-50. I don't know. I mean, they're doing POIs both ways.
Okay, good.
They're both making them dungeon crawls, and they're both making, like little ones that players could use as a temporary base or for a starter base. And then they've got, some of the regular just, abandoned building that you walk into or whatever,
Yeah,
to get some stuff. Um,
that's what I
but
miss from the earlier alphas is like, okay, this is a nice simple house. You know, the fact that every building became a dungeon crawl just kind of irritates me. Like, I just want to run into a nice simple house. I don't want to have to go through the whole thing and spend like 40 minutes clearing it. You know, just give me some basic stuff. You know, that makes me happy to hear that we're going to get some of that back.
yeah, they are working on stuff like that, and working on the balance. I mean, balancing the gameplay. That's a
Oh,
big thing.
yeah.
But now we have, and again, thankfully, they've done this in Deadstream, so I can actually talk about it. It's
Like I don't
so
remember what
hard.
they've talked. So I'm like, I'm not saying. Sion can say
It,
everything.
I watch all of their streams just so I know what I can talk about. But the new system with the game stage levels for the different biomes and for the different areas and for the different POIs is just gonna be a major game changer. But playing with it, it is a sweet ass system.
So I haven't been keeping up on the devs because Lathan decides to stream in his time zone, which is like 10 o'clock my time, and I'm like, I get up at 4:30 in the morning for work. I know you can sympathize. You work overnight, so I don't get to see them. Are you
I
saying
know,
that each biome is going to have a different game stage? Like if you played
right? It's
Valheim, is like kind of like Valheim, where you
very
start out.
similar.
Okay,
Yes, very similar to that. It's like the forest in the center. That's your base area. Say that's got a game stage multiplier of 1.0. But then you go into the desert, and it's a little bit harder. So the desert area will have a game stage multiplier of like 1.5, where what it basically does is it takes whatever your base game stage is, adds that multiplier to it, and that's going to affect the zombies that you run into and the loot that you get. So if you go into a biome with a harder game stage, it's going to be more challenging for you as a player, and you're going to get better loot
I like that.
based on what your current game stage is. And on top of the biomes, they're doing that to the POIs as well. So the tier 1, tier 2, all the way up to tier 6 or tier 7.
Yeah, I
Each
was just gonna
POI has its own difficulty rating.
I was gonna say to Peter that PowerShell scripts, when you download them from an external source, the Windows won't execute them
Right,
unless
you
you
have
go into
to
PowerShell and enable external scripts. And I don't know how bat files would work, but it could get blocked by the web browser or Windows, or that your antivirus won't allow you to execute a bat file downloaded from somewhere. So
yeah, the
in
batch
in
file
the
isn't going to work as well as a PowerShell will.
yeah, so in
It
theory,
does work. It does work. Batch
I,
files, no, and they're not. They're more limited. So
Much
that's
more
why I use
limited, yeah.
PowerShell.
yeah, so in theory, creating a script to do the mod install, it, it it's a good idea, but in practice, it's just easier to have them copy paste a single folder.
That's a good workaround. And I mean,
But they're dumb.
if it's pretty basic, it should work without an issue. It's when you get into things that are going to be touching sensitive data that Windows will
No.
start really throwing errors.
All it does is it extracts two zip files and then copies it to where it should go. If it doesn't know where, if it's not installed on the C drive, they run the other script which copies the files to every drive.
Can I hop back to the subject real quick? We were talking about the mod launcher. Do you guys know if Sphereiis has it to where when the base game is updated, if it's pulling from that base game, or is it just updating the mod files themselves? Because the conversation I've had with them before, and I've seen a lot of server owners not apply the updated mod to an updated base game.
What Sphereiis mod launcher does is there's two options. It could copy the current game directory and then install the mods on it, or you can have it download directly from Steam. The fresh server files. So I
So the
don't.
problem that I was seeing, and really the point of my question is, so like say 19.4 is out and they make Darkness Falls for 19.4, and then 19.5 goes stable, and somebody already has the mod installed through the mod launcher, and then Darkness Falls releases for 19.5. If you download the mod files from the mod launcher, it's going to apply the 19.5 mod files to your 19.4 base code.
Yes, you would have to update the game at least in your vanilla, and then just copied over from the vanilla and then have the mods reinstall. So I know Kane's not Kane only updates for stables. So if you update it on experimental on Darkness Falls, he's not going to support you because you didn't listen to him and say, hey, I do not update for experimental. Too much stuff can change between that and release.
So I guess if
Yeah.
nothing else, just kind of for you guys that didn't know that, or if you guys see others that have that problem, keep that in mind, because I've seen a lot of people do that and they wonder why their games start acting funky.
Yeah, I've seen it happen really often with Darkness Falls when there's an update there.
That is good to know because I'm running that right now.
Yeah, Flood's running it right now too. How's the server doing anyway?
It's doing right. He's not going to release for 19.5 until it goes stable. So
Right.
Right.
And hopefully.
He's already working on it though.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Any other questions from the listeners?
while we're waiting, one of the questions that Zipcore had up there about backing up files. I know there's a lot of admins that I've talked to that don't back up at all, even manually, and
No, that
that's
scares me so much. I'm like, what
yes,
in the
that's
world?
terrifying. So maybe we could talk about that.
Yeah.
A bit.
It's really sad when there's a player in support and they've had some glitch or whatever, and you're like, well, normally to fix that you'd restore a backup, and it's like, I don't have a backup, and you're just like, dude, you're killing me.
So many people don't run backups, and I like duplicity because you can set up scheduled automatic backups and it'll do them incrementally, so that you don't have to worry about your backups, eating up a whole lot of drive space. You can also set it to go up to the cloud, which is really nice. If you're self-hosting a server and you don't have a lot of drive space there, but you've got 15 gig on OneDrive, you can use that.
I will say one of the reasons why I switched from Bluefang over to Server Blend is Bluefang doesn't offer backups, so I ran for years with no backups.
Yep.
Yeah, you can with rented servers, you can create a script in WinSAP to pull the files down every so often, and
I
it's
didn't have I didn't have the storage.
Yeah, it's a bit of a pain to set up, but if something happens, it's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, it's the only complaint I have with my provider, GTX. Their backups require the servers to be stopped because their servers all run on Windows.
Right. Well,
but
that's where
you need to have a daily reboot anyway.
Duplicity works around that. It uses a similar algorithm that the Windows Shadow Copy service uses. And so it's able to take the backup while the server is live. It's the only software I'm aware of that works reliably taking live backups with 7 days on Windows.
Yeah, I started using Macram Reflect for that reason.
I use
Yeah, it's similar.
PowerShell script
But
for
I
it.
mean, because if you're on Linux, just use Archon. I mean,
Yeah.
Rcopy. Linux doesn't have a problem with it. I do live backups on all of our servers once an hour, and it's incremental and it's all sitting out there. And now I've got a 1 terabyte drive, but
Yeah,
If you're gonna,
I'm very paranoid with backups. I do a backup every 2 hours to a separate RAID 1 array, and that backup gets backed up to a files storage server, and occasionally I'll manually back up to cold storage drives and just have them disconnected. So I'm pretty much covered in every situation.
Absolutely, yeah. We run it the same way. We've got the hourly backups go to our 1 terabyte RAID, and then I've got from the 1 terabyte RAID it goes to our 8 terabyte NAS.
So if you guys aren't doing backups, get help to get backup set up. And then for my fellow geeks here, is there any solution that you guys can think of that offers like an automated FTP connection, because I had looked into that before when I was at Bluefang and never really found anything I liked, but maybe you guys have something that'll work.
What do you mean by automated FTP connection?
So just like a scheduled FTP connection, every once in a while it'll establish a FTP
Yeah.
into your files and download them.
Oh,
That was my
duplicity
problem
does
too.
that.
There's
Oh, perfect.
an application, if you like GUI applications, there's one called Free File Sync, which will do
Yeah, that does too.
it'll do it creates you a file, and then you can just set that into a scheduled task. It'll read the file for the config, and you can set that into your own Windows scheduled
Yeah,
task
'cause-
schedule.
I
I'll
think you
post
can do it
a link
with
to the Wikipedia for WinSCP. It
Yeah,
lets you
Win-
create scripts to pull it off the server.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, WinSCP
That's the
and
slightly
you can
techier way.
set up a FileZilla
Yeah, I think I played
server
with that.
as well to do it. I had problems last time I tried doing it with FileZilla though. I normally use WinSCP.
So that would be a good thing for us to kind of push to people that are on places like Bluefang that don't offer backups. Help them get that set up.
That's a
Yeah,
very
the
good-
the problem, the real problem with places like Bluefang, or is the cap on downloading your server data is so high that it will take you 2.5, 3 hours to run a backup from your server.
Yeah,
For
GTX is pretty good for that. I use Free File Sync to copy my GTX backups down to local storage, because they only offer 3 restore points. So if something happens a week and you don't find out about it, you're screwed. But it takes me about half an hour to download the latest copy.
Okay, so we only got about 10 minutes left. I see Talon is potentially typing a question here in Aussie Dog. So we'll see what they come up with. And then...
Aussie Dog is bounding over.
Uh-oh.
That was a
We did have a
terrible...
couple extra questions from Zip earlier on.
Well, yeah, that's
Like,
I wanted to end with his last one. But like I said, I saw people were typing, and I want to give them the chance to... Alright, he would really love information on remote backup. That's Aussie. And looks
You know what? Why don't I add that to things that we can discuss more in depth next time?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that would be good, because I would like to be
I would have
able
loved
to
that
put
information years
together
ago.
some scripts and more detailed information on that I can get up on the website.
Yeah, maybe I can write something up on the website and post some of my scripts up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If we could get a little section on the website for that, that would probably be really good, because then people are going to want to refer to it later.
Yeah, Naz, make it happen.
I remember it was such a pain in the ass, because there's the documentation that is there. It's from people that know what they're doing, and it's quite a learning curve to get it set up. But
you download the entire VM?
And no, you can choose like.
No, I'm looking at Offie Dog.
I think he's saying he shuts down the VM and backs it up.
Oh, okay. That makes a little more sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe he's
go ahead.
Doing OVH.
Yeah. All right. So Zip's last question, and I think we'll end on this, is what was the funniest support request you received from a player? I haven't received a funniest support request, but on one of my PvP servers, I have a no griefing rule. So you can't, like, once you kill the player, you can't go hunt and stalk them for the rest of your natural existence, because that just gets annoying and unfun and is a bit of trolling. However, I did have a couple of guys put about, 50 campfires around this guy's base to draw the zombies in. On top of that, wait, that's not even the best part. On top of that, they trolled this guy by one of them being underground, having an open mic, and rickrolling him for over a half hour.
Oh my god.
Now, I had to tell him, guys, you can't do that, and lean into him a bit. I thought it was hilarious, but it's something I couldn't let go on. It was a little excessive, but I'll say the funniest thing I've come across while running servers.
I used to, back in the Botman days, we used to just make everybody ship potatoes all the time. That was a blast.
I want to point out the whole poop command. That was me. Thank you very much.
Well done.
The shit gives you like diarrhea. Poop now gives you potatoes.
That's
That
awesome.
was a
You're
I'd like to
welcome.
thank you for that.
You're welcome.
yes.
Yeah.
That was me.
I used to fly around and put turds in mailboxes.
Oh my god. Oh, let me tell you what I used to do. Oh, but it's my favorite. Okay, so you can grab like the sleepers from the creative menu. So I would fly around, and when I would have players that were like mining whatever, as they would go along, I would place these little the sleepers behind them so that they turn around and start freaking out because a zombie was in their tom. Yes, I used to do that to people all the time. It was great.
You have that awesome admin gun that shouts profanities at people.
Oh yes, my admin gun. Yes, I
I still
snagged
have
one
your
of
code for that
the
somewhere.
voices. I love. I tell my players it's my job to get them killed.
Well, what I always do, and I love this, because I mean, instead of just kicking some of these asshats off the server, it's fun to play around with them. You just set up a custom script so that when they log in, it spawns streamers, and it repeats as long as they're logged in. They're instantly getting streamer words calculated on their direction.
I
I just
very much
pop
spawn
them
people
from
or
the
things.
sky. When people are
Yeah,
being
randomly
assets, I
teleport them
pop
into
them
the
from the sky.
But I had this one guy he was just being obnoxious and raiding other bases by basically creating enough heat to get a blood moon horde, and they would run around their base so the zombies broke into their base for him. And I just left a whole bunch of sleepers all the way around his base and demolishers and everything. And so he logged in and got creamed. And then he never came back.
Oh, what a shame.
And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, when that I suppose that's one of the 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 good things of being an admin or an owner is when a player does something wrong, it's basically free real estate to just mess around with them.
Oh yes, I had one. I had made a Santa's workshop for Halloween or Christmas one year, and I'd moved something, and like the land claim block wasn't protecting it fully, so some twat waffle went in there and blew up Santa's ship. Well, obviously I kicked them, and then I invited everybody on the server to come to their base, take everything, and then I spawned in, I don't know, 100 or 2 zombies to completely demolish the area.
Well,
Like I still,
I think you missed the trick. You could have replaced all the loot in their chests with coal.
that would have been good,
I
but
just feel they,
kick them.
I just feel their base full of turrets and then just make it a server event and everyone go in there and just smash up their base. And if they log back in, they just get killed by their own turrets.
I'm a Hawaiian zombie, is what I am.
I used to have a prison set up, and I had turrets in there that were wired up to a switch. So if they were in the cage, I could just flip the switch, and they would get executed for their evil deeds.
So
One of our admins had a great idea. The jail, we've sent people to jail. It was a tall tube, like 75 blocks, and it would spawn them in at about 50 block height, and then they would just fall down, and it was entirely black inside. And if you looked down, you could see a target painted on a block using the paintbrush, and then they would get right before they hit it, and then there was a teleport that would send them back up to the top. And so when somebody
The
got sent
timeout for
to jail,
Botman.
so when somebody got sent to jail, that was basically it. It was blackness. It was nothing except falling towards this target over and over again.
So I did something sort of similar. I would go down the bedrock and carve out a decent sized jail. And what I would do is I would actually put turrets down there on, set or sensors. But what I would do is before I don't know if they changed the black, but it was like the cooler black. So I paint the whole thing in cooler black, and it absorbs all the light, even if you had a mining helmet
Absolutely.
on. And it
You
was
wouldn't see
basically,
anything.
it was just be like, sensory deprivation. And I would
Mhm.
just leave them in there, and then if they got too close to one end, they'd start to get shot at. But you could not figure out where you were in there because it was a light sucking black. Now I don't know if they changed that black or not.
No, it is still light sucking
It'll
black.
work.
Oh, good, because I
Yeah,
like
that's the
that.
one that we used for the tube.
Yeah, you can't tell where you're going. Like the guy gets teleported there, he doesn't know he's falling until that target gets real close.
We had Botman can make mazes out of whatever materials you want, and so
Mhm.
one time for our jail where people would go if they did PvP, or were naughty, we made a really big maze and covered the entire thing in that black paint. So you could move forward, maybe you could hear the sound of yourself walking, but it wouldn't actually, you couldn't tell if you were moving around in the maze. So I've changed it since, and I've got a 3-story maze that you do these little loops. But on the walls, when you log in, it says, you're here. If you shot somebody, this is how you can get released. But on all the walls, it says shame, shame, shame as you wander around the hallways doing nothing.
We made a jail once. It was a double layered jail where the inside layer was where the player was, and in the outside layer we had zombie bears. Not just regular zombie bears. So I created a custom zombie bear from this that had like 500,000 HP, and the HP regen from all the ferals that was like 10 times stronger, so nobody could kill it. And as long as you stayed in the center of your cage, you were safe. But if you moved around, you would get attacked by the bear. And you wanted to move around because there were containers on the edge to have food and stuff so that you didn't die while you were in jail.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But I think we'll wrap up here unless anybody has any last minute questions.
Bad player, she's not a girl. No. Oh.
No.
She's the
I'm a
Hawaiian
12-year-old
zombie.
Hawaiian. I'm a Hawaiian zombie.
She's using Karma is using a voice changer.
New voice changer. I should have used that. I could have been like.
Can it change so I can have an Australian accent as well?
Now you gotta fake it.
You don't want me to fake
Oh, no.
voices? No, it's so bad.
Taking me over 40 years to develop this accent.
Right. I'll probably end up sounding Irish.
Yeah, you had too much force this last.
Or like a squirrel.
This is disgusting. Only people overseas like that shit.
All right. T wants to know where he gets his parking validated. That's Karma's
front
job.
desk.
She's public relations.
You. Go make your own damn coffee.
All right, so we'll end here for tonight or this morning, however you want to look at it, depending where your time zone is, and we should be back next week. And
Yes.
we'll any suggestions of topics, please just drop them in the Brain Drain text channel, or you can just message or at one of us. Please do not DM us. We do not like that.
No.
You will, if you DM me by chance and get through, you will be blocked. I'm very anti-DM. So, everybody have a good day, a good night, a good whatever, and we will talk with you guys next week. So thanks for coming in, and we hope we'll see some of you next week and some more people. Tell your friends.
Sounds good.
See you guys.
See you guys.
So DM you, correct? Just kidding.
Everyone DM him.
No random.
Block everyone.
Bye.